Time to rise and grind on this glorious Wednesday morning right here on the SportsGrid Network, Sirius XM Channel 159. I am Donnie Rightside. He is Joe Ranieri, and over the next 3 hours, we got you covered on all the hottest topics on the sports landscape, which includes Joe Ranieri. We are on Christmas Eve for Major League Baseball season. Open your presents tomorrow. How we feeling this morning, Joe?
It's kind of hard to believe we're at that point, Donnie, but here we are, right? MLB, 162 games on its way. The ultimate grind when it comes to handicapping, Donnie.
Yep, let me just give you a preview of the Major League Baseball season. Boy, we love it in April, May, June, July, and then when August hits, get baseball out of my face. Let's get ready for football and college football alike, but we got to set the table for everything, which does include here, Joe, the 7 in 7, the hottest topics in sports. Let's start in Milwaukee last night. How about this? Milwaukee 32, Lakers 16 at the end of one. No LeBron James. It looks like a blowout's going to be on the horizon. Not so fast. A great defensive fourth quarter by the Lakers and some clutch shooting in overtime sees a double overtime victory for the Lakers, 128-124. How about that?
Yeah, finally, somebody steps up there, right, for the Lakers. Reeves, triple-double, gets a big three there late, and 2 overtimes later, voila, you got yourself a Lakers great value pick yesterday. It was 7, Donnie, yesterday morning when we were talking about this game, 7.5, and then all of a sudden LeBron gets ruled out. It almost hit 10, but ultimately they didn't need the points because they won outright.
Yeah, questions abound all the way through. The one thing we know about Giannis, he's going to score. I mean, he went 29, 21, 11, and they lost because Damian Lillard, who was supposed to be that savant coming over from Portland, he scored 27 points, and some people like that's fantastic, but keep in mind it was double overtime and also 9 of 29 from the floor, which included 3 of 14 from three-point range. Not working out so far with Dame Dash over here. As we welcome in the radio audience, you're watching and listening live to the Early Line, a Wednesday morning edition right here on Sirius XM Channel 159. I'm Donnie Rightside. He's Joe Ranieri, hitting the hottest topics across the sports landscape, which include another superstar player sitting out. No surprise, it's the NBA, but that was the Golden State Warriors capitalizing 113-92 over the Miami Heat. And boy, did the Golden State Warriors need that victory last night, and they got it, Joe.
Yeah, no, they did. This was our best bet on the show. Yesterday, we liked the under, and that was with Jimmy Butler supposedly playing there because it was ironic. He wasn't on the injury report at all yesterday. The usual suspects were, and then about 5:30, oh, I got an illness. Jimmy Butler's not playing. Okay. Well, there goes any hope of Miami going ahead and winning that game. But it was a grind, kind of like what we thought it was going to be, Donnie. These two teams are dead under teams here for me moving forward.
Yeah, take a look at, the NBA landscape as it is. Good luck betting on an NBA game before 6 p.m. Eastern because you always get those surprises. Hey, got a great number early in the day. Congratulations. The best player's now sitting out. Good luck in that basketball game. Let's keep it in the NBA. And by the way, OKC still fighting for the rights to get that number 1 overall seed in the Western Conference. They pick up a big-time victory yesterday, 119-112 over the New Orleans Pelicans. We take a look at Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, not in the 30s, and they won a game against a quality team. That's a start because you got 26 out of Williams, 16 out of Holmgren, and 25 out of Josh Giddey. A nice win for OKC as they try to climb back up in that top spot in the West.
Yeah, well, they blew a 20-point second half lead, too, as New Orleans kept coming back at them there. It looked kind of like it was going to be an easy ride, and New Orleans fought all the way to the end. Unfortunately, came up a little bit short. They need Brandon Ingram back, but with that knee problem, I don't know that he's coming back anytime soon, but they certainly missed, his score-making last night there, this New Orleans team.
How about this? Oh, my goodness. Opening day is tomorrow, so one of the better pitchers in baseball in the free agent market still left was Jordan Montgomery. Signs with the Arizona Diamondbacks that I love this year. You take a look at that NL West. It is stacked, it looks like now, from top to bottom. But also, when we're talking about these Scott Boras customers, or should I say agents, looking for customers as teams, we want hundreds of millions of dollars, Joe, and we're settling for pennies on the dollar. This basically amounts to a 1-year, $25 million deal. But the Arizona Diamondbacks got better last night.
I don't. Whoever this agent is, fire him. Like, I have no idea. You would have gotten so much more. You were offered so much more in the marketplace. We know the Yankees alone were offering them at least 2 or 3 years here with guaranteed money somewhere in the $70 to $80 million range. So He gets $20 million option if he goes 10 games. It starts rising from there, 18 starts, all the way up to 23 starts to get the full $25 million. I mean, my goodness. Who is his agent? Oh, yeah. One everyone loves. Yeah.
Mr. Scott Boras out here. And by the way, you
Yeah.
bring up a good question on that because the Yankees were major players on Snell and Montgomery.
Huge.
And months ago, we're like, hey, we're going to offer a nice deal, long-term money. You're going to get what you get. You play in New York. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to hold out for a better deal. And I think Major League Baseball, the owners, are onto this. Now, we've seen collusion in the past, but this is collusion I think that everybody loves because of the way Scott Boras treats free agency. There'll always be a better deal once the pressure builds up. Not the case for two of his biggest clients this whole season. That should hurt him in the future. Talking about contracts here, Jerry Jones is like, you know what, Joe? Hey, Dak, prove it on the field. You're going to make a lot of money. We're not extending you. Do or die this year. I love what the Cowboys are doing with Dak Prescott. Put up or shut up this year.
Well, I mean, the lack of activity for the Dallas Cowboys so far in the offseason would make you think maybe they're hemorrhaging money, but we all know better than that. But it looks like Jerry's getting ready to hit the reset button, and that might actually be a pretty good situation there for the Cowboys.
Usually you would say it's like, hey, because his number is like $50 million. You restructure, give him more money, but you lower his cap to down around $20 million next year. You could sign more free agents. Jerry's like, maybe I've seen enough of this because sooner than later, Dak's going to have to take me deep into the playoffs. He hasn't been able to do it. And what, is more money going to make him take me deeper into the playoffs? I like the stance that the Cowboys are having here. Also, Cordell Patterson signs with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Why? Because we got kickoffs, Joe, back in our life.
Please. Yeah, the social media was really excited about that XFL wrinkle they decided to throw into there. But I believe, right, Arthur Smith, OC, as well there with the Steelers now. So there's a little bit of history there between those two.
Yeah, if he's going to be playing running back, can you lose the number 84? I mean, come on now, stop the man.
Please.
At this
Yeah,
point.
please.
Just get the guy a normal number. We can, stop our eyes from burning into our head. If you want to talk about eyes burning into your head, you come back to Kentucky. Calipari is going to get at least one more year there. Some people would say he's underperformed, but you know what Kentucky's looking at? Look, we're not paying him $33 million to go away. If we all have to suffer, he's going to suffer with us next year, Joe.
Yeah, that's what you call leverage, boys and girls. When you can walk into your boss's office knowing that he's got to pay you $80 million one way or the other, no matter what comes out his mouth. That is absolute leverage, and Calipari has all of it.
No, he certainly does. And the rightful thing, like, that's a blue blood program, right? He's getting all the right pieces that come there, but just haven't performed. I believe the last time they made a Final Four, 2015, been a long time since they won a national championship. And those are always the expectations at Kentucky. But also, you're still just not going to say, okay, I'm going to have to get a new coach in here, which would probably cost me $6 million a year at this university, and pay John Calipari $33 million just to go away and probably float his way over to Louisville at that point here. So they kept around another year. We'll see if it works out. But based on past performances, it probably won't. To the NBA we go. Let's hit what happened last night and see how it plays moving forward in the playoffs. It's the early line. We'll be right back.
Michigan State looked good. We were like, oh my gosh, I mean, Sparta to win the title. North Carolina beat a team who's barely beaten any good teams all year long. But I was expecting it.
Not a great three-point shooting team at about 139th in the country, shooting about 35% as a team. But the one thing we know about Marquette's defense, the three-point line is vulnerable for them.
Only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats in fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the
All
rim.
I've heard you say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smart team.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if they're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live. Prime time.
Back-to-back just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live. Overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
About 15 games left in the NBA season. Teams jockeying for position in both the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference. We're going to start here, Joe Ranieri, in Milwaukee last night. Now, by the way, for a 4-game card, I loved what the NBA did last night. It's a shame LeBron James did sit out because each and every one of those games was going to be one of those like, hey, you know what, 5 points or less across the board. Now, we also saw, as Joe pointed out, Jimmy Butler sitting late yesterday, but we didn't anticipate that early in the show yesterday on the early line. But looking at this game moving forward, which was the Lakers and the Bucks, no LeBron James, should have been an easy victory for Milwaukee. And sometimes as you set the table, we all expected this, or most of us, right? End of the first quarter, Milwaukee 32, Los Angeles 16. Look at that. Maybe Anthony Davis going to, get curtains in the second half and just say, or early in the second half, I don't have to play anymore because there's no point in me playing in this basketball game if we can't win. Fast forward to 2 overtimes. Anthony Davis, he played 52 minutes last night, 34 points, 23 rebounds in a Lakers victory, which has more question marks for me on the Milwaukee Bucks as it does the Lakers. But that's a big-time win for the Lakers here. I loved what I saw. That's a lot of fight heading down the stretch, including winning that fourth quarter 27-13. How about it? The Lakers with a dub last night, Joe.
And how ridiculous is the NBA getting, Donnie, with these 20-point leads mean absolutely squat.
Nothing.
It's almost to the point where, like, all right, wait until one team gets up 20 points and then in-game go ahead and hammer it the other way because it's not going to last. It's unbelievable how 20-point leads these days now evaporate and you get double overtime games without a superstar playing. And listen, a lot of this had to do with the fact that Lillard couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat. But he still certainly took his shots, though, didn't he? I mean, he was 9 of 29. And yes, he scored 27, as you pointed out, Donnie. But my goodness, I mean, 9 of 29. Malik Beasley had 21. But if he is a couple of more shots, and Milwaukee probably runs away with this thing one way or the other. But he was awful last night, no doubt about it.
Let me ask you a question about this, too, because the Lakers, I do think, are going to be in the top 10, let's just say, in the Western Conference, comfortably into that play-in series. But the Milwaukee Bucks, for me, do you remember the trade as it went down where Dame Lillard out of nowhere goes to Milwaukee as opposed to Miami? It's like, oh, my goodness. Like, you're talking about, 1-2 punch here. The Boston Celtics and the Milwaukee Bucks down to the final game of the season. One game, back of each other. Each team hovering around 60 wins. And the Milwaukee Bucks, even though it's a solid record here, Joe, 46-26, I just feel like Dame hasn't even come close to living up to what we thought could possibly be in Milwaukee.
Well, it's amazing that a guy like Damian Lillard, right, one of the most prolific shooters in the game, in the history of the game, right? We never talk about him with this team. This entire team's narrative has been around wrong coach, fire coach, hire Doc Rivers, don't play any defense. Yeah, I mean, but at what point have we ever talked about Dame Lillard, which is kind of mind-blowing, right? I mean, he has not dominated the headlines with this organization. And what happened last night is exactly the reason why they fired Griffin and brought in Doc Rivers. How's that working out for you exactly, Milwaukee?
Yeah, not too well right now. We'll see if they can get it together in the playoffs here. But finally being healthy, like their big three was healthy last night. LeBron James didn't play. They were at home. As you said, close to a double-digit favorite, lose outright here. Let's flip it over to South Beach. How about this game? Golden State Warriors taking it on the chin the past couple of days because the Houston Rockets are trying to hunt them down for that 10th overall seed. They come away with a big victory in Miami, 113-92. In that game, you saw Klay Thompson go 6 of 14 from three-point range in the starting lineup for 28 points. Ho-hum effort here by Steph Curry, 3 of 10 from three-point range, only 17 points. But when you look at the Miami Heat, I could say the incomplete Miami Heat, that was a walk-away winner for the Dubs.
Yeah, and Kuminga is really starting to come into his own for the Warriors. He played a big role there. But this whole entire thing, you know, we had heard yesterday how the Miami Heat were close to getting healthy, right? So Kevin Love and Caleb Martin were going to be good to go, and there was no Bam Adebayo on the list. There was no Jimmy Butler. They're hoping to get Tyler Hero back here shortly. So things were looking good, and then all of a sudden, illness. I don't even know what that is. An illness pops up on Jimmy Butler, and next thing you know, yeah, no Tyler Hero, no Jimmy Butler. I'm good with anybody as long as Butler and Bam are on the court. The minute you take one of those two guys out of that equation, it doesn't matter who else is playing the rest of the pieces. Duncan Robinson was also out in that game. So, yeah, there's a combination for Miami that will work and be dangerous, but that wasn't it last night.
No, it certainly wasn't. And you take a look at the Miami Heat, right? Like, man, when are some of these guys actually getting back into the lineup? Because they weren't thought to be like major injuries. I always flip it over to the New York Knicks. Like, okay, they'll be out a little bit with Randall and Anunoby. They're on like a milk carton at this point here. No idea. And I don't even get any updates of when these guys are actually coming back. So we'll see how it plays out down the stretch. But a lot of mystery in the Eastern Conference with some of these big-time injured players heading down the stretch. No mystery last night. The OKC Thunder pick up a 7-point victory on the road against the New Orleans Pelicans, led, how about this, by Josh Giddey, 25-9 last night. Williams had 26 points. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander didn't even need to go for 30-plus points in a victory as he scores 24 here. OKC with a great victory on the road against a talented Pell squad.
Yeah, you got to love, too. I know there's a lot of guys on Giddey's prop number going over, which was, you ready for this? 3.5.
Flag it.
Flag it. And I think they cashed the ticket in the first quarter. It was another one of these great games, great effort on the road by OKC, who, by the way, has not been great against the number. Laying points with them has not been great as of late. And then they were a favorite again yesterday, although it was only by, -1, 1.5. They, too, almost blew a 20-point second-half lead where New Orleans came roaring back. I mean, Zion was huge last night. McCollum took him a little longer to get ready, but it was a 20-2 run that put New Orleans back in that game last night. Ultimately, give credit to OKC on the road. They held on. They withstood the 20-2 run and end up winning the game. So pretty good moxie by OKC.
Teams are supposed to tire, Joe, on the road on the second night of a back-to-back. Even if the home team has a back-to-back, you figured the legs would be fresher. That wasn't the case last night as we went out to Sacramento. I actually thought the Kings were the right side in this one at -1.5. They get smoked, 132-96. And take a look at this second half. Dallas won the third quarter, 38-23. In the fourth quarter, 36-20. This is what we wanted to see from the Dallas Mavericks, where it can't just all be Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. They had 28 and 24 respectively, but 14 points by P.J. Washington, 22 off the bench by Hardaway. This is one of those teams to watch out for because if they get it right and the superstars are healthy, they can do damage, and they really did damage last night in a monster victory over the Kings.
Yeah, well, and now with that win, too, the Mavs have sixth place by themselves here. They moved the game ahead of Sacramento. Both of them are trying to avoid that, dreaded 7 or lower position there and have to play a play-in game. But, Donnie, if I'd have told you, hey, take the over in the Sacramento-Dallas game, and you did at 233 and then woke up to find out Dallas scored 132, you must have been like, all right, where's my money? Yeah, no. Yeah, didn't. Another non-over situation, even in the 230s, with a team scoring $132.
Yeah, and the thought process for me last night was, okay, if they're both on back-to-back, one team was waiting on the other team because the Dallas Mavericks had to fly in, and that certainly wasn't the case. You take a look at the starting lineup for the Mavericks last night, Joe, plus 25, plus 25, plus 21, plus 28, and plus 18 here. So when we do look at those standings here, they do sneak, talking about the Dallas Mavericks, into that top 6. Now they sit only one game back of the Pelicans, who lost last night. Dallas is really intriguing because, as we know, once you get into the playoffs, it's extended. First round, one game every 3 to 4 days that you play. Superstars get a chance to rest and get healthy. And also, looking at the game last night, very efficient for the two superstars. 35 minutes for Irving, 32 minutes for Doncic. But both of them, how about this? 10 of 19 from the floor for Kyrie Irving, 10 of 18 from the floor for Luka Doncic. Now, Luka, the first thing you look at, right, is did he get that triple-double? So your eyes go, okay, 28 points, 11 rebounds. Oh, he had the assist there, but only had 6. But that's because Kyrie Irving chipped in with 8 assists to go right next to him. I liked what I saw last night from the Dallas Mavericks, so we'll keep an eye on them down the stretch. But now, out of the play-in rounds here, let's flip it over to college basketball and take a preview of the Sweet 16 action this weekend.
Michigan State looked good. We were like, oh my gosh, Sparta to win the title. North Carolina beat a team who's barely beaten any good teams all year long. But I was expecting it.
Not a great three-point shooting team at about 139th in the country, shooting about 35% as a team. But the one thing we know about Marquette's defense, the three-point line is vulnerable for them.
Only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats in fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the rim.
All I've heard you say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live, all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smart Team.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if they're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live, prime time.
Back-to-back, just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live, overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Hour number one here, rolling along on the early line. It's Sonny right side of Joe Ranieri, and my goodness, tomorrow. What a big day we have in the sports landscape. We do have Major League Baseball opening day, which is fantastic, but also the Sweet 16 and the chalky Sweet 16, which I actually like here. The big dogs moving through the tournament, the ratings, and the sizzling play on the court should happen tomorrow. But let's have some fun with what we're going to take a look at on Thursday night, just as a primer here. The 4 games here. Now, I'm going to list these off in chronological order, Joe. Then I need your assistance here as I sort of get angry once again when I see some of these times. But we'll get to that in just a moment. 7:09 p.m. tomorrow night. That's Clemson and Arizona, where Arizona is a 7.5-point favorite. 7:39, San Diego State and Connecticut will tee it up. A 10.5-point favorite here for Connecticut. Then we take a look at Alabama and North Carolina. That's a 9:39 tip-off tomorrow. 3.5 as the favorite here for North Carolina over Alabama. And then Illinois and Iowa State at 10:09. That's a 1.5-point favorite for Iowa State. Now, we went in chronological order, so you would think there's games on the West Coast and there's games on the East Coast. You would want to play the games on the East Coast a little bit earlier than the West Coast. So help me out with this. Clemson and Arizona is the 7:09 game on the West Coast, which is a 4:09 start Pacific here. But then you have San Diego State and Connecticut starting at 7:39. Now, typically you'd say to yourself, what's the big deal here? It's 7:39 on the East Coast. Well, there's a double header on the East Coast, which includes Illinois and Iowa State, due to tip at 10:09. If anybody knows sports, including college basketball, that means 10:39 as a tip here. Help me out, Joe. Why do we do this? Why?
No idea, Donnie. It's the only thing I can come up with is maybe the number counters there with ratings and money and everything else. Look, and those are the perfect times to be able to throw this on. Damn to the actual fans and the people who enjoy watching this. We'll just go where the money is, and that's usually when they make decisions like this. It usually has something to do with that's where the money is.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy because, again, I shouldn't be upset with this, but I feel like, I'm much older than what my age is because I won't be able to – I have tickets on, that Illinois-Iowa State game with Iowa State to possibly win the championship. And I got to wake up in the morning to see who won that basketball game. And also, if it started at 9, that's my fault then if I can't stay awake for that game. But tipping after most people are already in bed on the East Coast where the game is being played on the East Coast here, it's crazy that it happens here. But let's have some fun with these Thursday night games. And let's start with this. Closest games. Now, granted, obviously, we're odds makers. We're handicappers, Joe, right? So you would say, just show me the spread here. It's Illinois and Iowa State at -1. But if I asked you this today and we removed the spreads here and said who actually is going to keep it close here, take a look here at the FanDuel Sportsbook. Plus 195, 2-1, 290, and 390 are the price points here. And obviously, that's based on what those spreads are coming out to be. Is it as easy just to say for you, Joe? It's Iowa State and Illinois at -1.5 will be closest because for my money here, I'm actually going to go on a limb. I think Clemson can keep it close with Arizona and take that price point at plus 290. Who do you think keeps it close this weekend in their game?
Yeah, so who pulls out the upset? I actually have Illinois winning this game simply because I don't trust Iowa State's offense. And yes, they are tremendous defensively here, but I think Thomas, Hawkins, Shannon Jr., that is one of the most experienced teams in college basketball right now, this Illinois team. They're not going to be thrown off because Iowa State's defense is unbelievably tenacious. They're not going to turn them off. They're not going to be, it's not going to be too big a moment. They're not going to be phased like some of the teams Iowa State has played and won against. What they do have, though, however, is an ability and scoring in bunches that could put Iowa State away because Iowa State's not built. You notice, Donnie, they're not built to play from behind. So they need to keep this game close and hope that they get the right turnovers and they can win this game going away. I just don't think they have enough firepower at this point to be able to do that against Illinois. And Illinois is one of the most underrated teams left in the tournament with nobody talking about it. They all think it's, you stop Terrence Shannon and you stop Illinois. I don't think so. They got plenty of guys on that team that can score, and they have shown it time and time again.
Yeah, they're really talented, Illinois. No question about that here. Superstar players, you got to have go-to players and specifically guards in that position. They have them all the way around. But if we're taking a look at that San Diego State-Connecticut game, it's 10.5. It's one of the rare spots here that you will find where it's right in your backyard for Connecticut. That is a de facto home game, because you usually might say, like, what happens if they were playing like Kentucky or Villanova or Providence, right? And say, like, okay, it's regionality. Those fans will be able to get there. You can't find a team in San Diego State farther away from the place that they're actually playing. So take a look at that 10.5. That is true home court advantage here for the Connecticut Huskies. Let's take a look at the highest scoring game probabilities here for Thursday night. Now, obviously, if we're looking at the totals, there are some pretty good ones. 152.5 in the Arizona game. You take a look at another game that should be a decent scoring game, Illinois and Iowa State, 145. The low band on the totem pole is Connecticut and San Diego State at 135.5. And then you have the outlier here, 173.5, North Carolina and Alabama. And you see those price points here. That's a minus 340 in the building here. Now, granted, that's one of those where you'd say to yourself, I'll take the 340. By far, it's going to be the best tempo, Joe. We've seen it before, 10-9 with 8 minutes to go in the first half, going like, what happened? Nobody can make shots here. I can't take the favorite, even though I think that pace is fantastic. If you were looking at the highest scoring game on Thursday, which game you picking out, obviously, without that Alabama-North Carolina game?
Well, it's interesting because the top three highest NCAA tournament totals, right, since 1995, you know what they are? All three of Alabama's games this year, Grand Canyon, Charleston, and now Alabama UNC are the three highest we have ever seen. I think that tells you a little something about the state of college basketball here. It's interesting. UConn and San Diego State. I think didn't we see this game, Donnie? I swear like I felt like I've seen. Oh, I did. Only I saw UConn dismantle this team, the better San Diego State team, which was a year ago. And the argument can be made that UConn's team this year is better than the championship team from a year ago. So I think UConn's going to open up a can of you-know-what on San Diego State here. And I would not be shocked at all if UConn is the highest scoring team this weekend, as everyone seems to think San Diego State's got a puncher's chance. They have no chance. Location, talent, absolutely. UConn is not going to be fazed by San Diego State, especially considering they just beat them, 10 months ago?
Look, I need them out in the big way, UConn. So I got my Kawhi Leonard, San Diego State University jersey I might throw on for that game, and I need SDSU to keep that game close, or at least put some pressure on Connecticut. Everybody's brackets, they love Connecticut. I'm not loving Connecticut, but boy, would I love San Diego State pulling off the upset in that environment here. By the way, quick question on just handicapping a 173.5. Like, let's get this straight. It's two teams, obviously very talented here, off for a couple days, switching to a neutral court environment that they haven't played in here. So it's not one team's in their home gym in Alabama, one team's at the Dean Dome in North Carolina. Even if the numbers make sense and you know the tempo is going to be there. Like, I look at that 173.5 and say, let me just do the quick math. They both got to get to around 85 points. I just take the under and live with it here. How do you approximate getting to 173.5? Is it, hey, look, numbers make sense. I'll go over that number. But as you pointed out, we don't see these numbers in college basketball quite often.
No. And again, when you just set the record for the three most highest totals in the history of the tournament, and Alabama has them all, that's what you need to know. So what I would do, Donnie, is say, who do you think is going to win the game? Play their team total over. That's it. Yeah. Because that's what's going to take in order to win Alabama. If Alabama wins, they're going to need to, in all likelihood, they're definitely going to need a certain amount of points to get past North Carolina. Same thing with North Carolina. Take the team totals of whoever the winner is over. In this way, in case, because it's not going to stop for Alabama. Even if they're up 20, they're still going to keep playing Alabama basketball. There's not going to be any slowing down for either of these teams. So the team totals is the way I would look.
Other side of the spectrum, lowest scoring game here on that Thursday night in the Sweet 16. Obviously, you're looking at the numbers, 10 lower than the second team here. The Illinois-Iowa State game is 145.5. San Diego State, Connecticut is 135.5. But you see, that's actually not a bad price point because we just saw the highest scoring game, right, in that minus 300 range. It's minus 165. If you look at Clemson, Arizona, I know Clemson can try to slow you down, but that's not Arizona's game. And if Arizona has the lead, Clemson's going to have to match tempo. I don't see a shootout in San Diego State, Connecticut. Like, the one game I would bet under probably is that UConn game at 135.5. So I would take that juice at 165. What are you feeling for that lowest scoring game out here, Joe?
Again, I would look towards the team totals here because you do run the risk of a double-digit favorite winning by double digits and it getting very ugly in that spot. So I don't know what UConn's team total is, but if you think they're going to run away with this, they're not going to take their foot off the gas at this point. None of these teams are taking their foot off the gas. So when I'm seeing a double-digit line like this, Donnie, I'm thinking, yeah, UConn's just going to keep going. They're not going to slow down. If it's a closer game, then, if San Diego State is in this thing in the second half, in the final 5 or 6 minutes, they're probably going over their total. They're probably going to have to in order to win this game.
Yeah, quickly on this, highest scoring team here of the Sweet 16, North Carolina plus 115. You take a look at Arizona plus 480. I would go between those two teams here to see if I can take it down because I do think North Carolina wins and also Arizona wins, and you should get a lot of tempo in that following Elite Eight game as well.
Pick the winner, whichever winner in those games that you like. I'm with you. I think Clemson could present a problem for Arizona, so they might not get as much scoring as people are hoping for, but I definitely think the top two are.
We got to be versatile, people, which means we already hit the NBA. We hit college basketball. Did you know when you go to sleep tonight and wake up tomorrow, it's Major League Baseball's opening day? Let's get a preview, a primer. Let's have some fun right here on the early line. Mo Mackey.
Michigan State looked good. We were like, oh my gosh, Sparta to win the title. North Carolina beat a team who's barely beaten any good teams all year long. But I was expecting it.
Not a great three-point shooting team at about 139th in the country, shooting about 35% as a team. But the one thing we know about Marquette's defense, the three-point line is vulnerable for them.
Only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats in fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the
All
rim.
I've heard you say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smart team.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if they're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live. Prime time.
Back-to-back, just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live. Overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Tomorrow is opening day. Don't let them fool you out here, Joe Ranieri. Don't let the people fool you that, no, Donnie and Joe, last week was opening day in the Seoul series between the Dodgers and the San Diego Padres. We've already forgot about in that series overall. Tomorrow, the official start of opening day for Major League Baseball, and we're going to have some fun setting up some of these primers. But I do think the best way to start here is take that overall preview. We'll take a look at some of these divisions and some of the favorites to win it, but let's take a look at those World Series odds. Obviously, all throughout the winter here, the Dodgers went out, spent money. Shohei Ohtani, multiple pitchers, bullpen help. I mean, heck, they even got Mookie Betts playing shortstop now because they're so talented around the diamond. They're just trying to get the best bats in the lineup and say, you know what? Even if we make a few errors here, it doesn't matter. We'll put up 7 runs a night. They're a plus 320 price right now to win the World Series at the FanDuel Sportsbook, followed by the Atlanta Braves at a plus 450 price. Teams under 10-1 also include the Houston Astros and the New York Yankees. So we'll start here. Is it just so easy that why even going to play the Major League Baseball season, Joe? It's just going to be the Dodgers at the end. Save your money and just bet the Dodgers and everything that goes along with them.
Well, I mean, that's at this point in the season, yes, it is that easy. But, you know, the reason that you continue to follow it, watch it, and bet it is because you have teams like the Marlins, who are World Series champions, the Texas Rangers, who have been World Series champions, where the small market teams are always, it doesn't matter how much money you spend. Major League Baseball is a very unique sport in that way, where you can have a, $250 million payroll. Doesn't mean you win in squat. But at this point in the season, those teams usually take shape and get better as the year goes on. There is no way any of us were looking at Texas last year. What were we, Donnie, at this point in the year going, the Rangers, don't sleep on the no. At this point, it's yes, the level of talent. We had Craig Mish on yesterday, in fact, and I thought he said it perfectly. Listen, if Ohtani even misses a couple of games, does it really make a difference? They're a 103-win team right now. What are they going to win? 99 games, 98? So talent is what it's all about at this point in the season.
And particularly, Joe, as you know, like the talent in the regular season, right? The question is, can that talent rise up in a short series in October?
Right.
But for the April, May, June, July, August, throughout the summer, every single day the Dodgers take the diamond. They're the best team on the diamond. They're going to crush teams left and right here. Yes, they will. You lose their fair share of games. We're not talking, it's a 162-game schedule. The Dodgers team total is at 153.5. They're going to lose games, but every night where you say, like, okay, is this the night I'm going to take the dog price against the Dodgers? Then the Dodgers release that lineup, and you go like, all right, I might keep it moving here. I don't know if I want to take that plus 300 price here because, my goodness, look what the Dodgers have out there. But it's such a hard obstacle just mentally in the regular season to bet against them. But quite frankly, the way they line up in the playoffs, we know it's all about pitching. If you have a hot 1-2 punch in the lineup going against the Dodgers, they might be able to stem the tide, and we'll see how that breaks down. But certainly regular season heavy favorites here. Let's take a look at some of these divisions here. The AL East. Yankees, Orioles, Jays, Rays, and Red Sox in that order. The Yankees are a plus 165 to take down the AL East. The Orioles, a 2-1 price, who had a fantastic season last year, hoping to build on that. The one thing I still can't get over in my mind is the Boston Red Sox are a 19-1 price, not to win the World Series, to win their own division, basically falling by the wayside and saying, you know what? We have a massive following here. We'll fill that ballpark up. Why should we spend any money? We'll just pocket everything to maybe buy another EPL soccer team at this point. But for the AL East, is it the Yankees in a runaway here, or do you see the Toronto Blue Jays, Rays, or maybe the Orioles stepping up here and overtaking the Yanks this year?
Well, much I think, like you said, with the Dodgers, right? As long as the Dodgers are on the field and they can field 9 guys, they're going to have a chance to win, right?
Yeah.
I'd like to say the same thing with the Yankees because the Yankees, although there are plenty of question marks on the pitching side, starting pitching side, and you lose your ace and Cole, that's never a good situation. But ultimately, you win games by scoring more runs than the other team, and the Yankees are absolutely loaded. So I get it. Yankees going to every scene expecting to win, and it usually doesn't end in great fanfare at the end. But I don't understand as value goes. I don't understand why nobody's talking about the Tampa Bay Rays, who have consistently showed that you may not have heard of any of these players, but their farm system is top-notch. and the way they go about business in a 162-game season, Donnie, proves to be very profitable. Look at their win totals over and to bet them in a lot of situations. Let's not forget, nobody talked about them this time last year, and then they rattled off an unbelievable April and May that pretty much carried them the rest of the year once the injuries started to pile up there. So I can't sleep on the Tampa Bay Rays here. I don't know why the market continues to do so.
Yeah, you take a look at the Rays, too, because it just feels like, most people say, well, they lose some superstar players. They lose superstar players every single year and continue to retool and have 10 guys that seemingly come up from AAA that throw 100 miles an hour out of that bullpen here. It's just how they operate. But also, if we take a look at run scoring in this division, outside of Tampa, which is a tough place to score runs, they have hitter-friendly ballparks all across. And you called it out here. That Yankees lineup 1 through 9. Torres, Soto, Judge, Rizzo, Stanton, Verdugo, Volpe, Cabrera, and Trevino anticipated to be their 1 through 9. If they stay healthy in those smaller ballparks, they are going to be able to do some damage, and rightfully so about some of those MVP odds. Let's take a look at the AL Central. One of those divisions is like, okay, let's just pass by. Great. One team will win the division. They'll get smoked in round 1 of the playoffs. The Twins are the favorites here to minus 130 price, followed by the Guardians, Tigers, Royals, and the White Sox. The one, again, where I look at the last place teams. 2 years ago, if you would have told me the White Sox would be 65-1 to win the AL Central, I'd say you out of your mind. They're probably minus 180 or minus 200 with all that talent. Rebuilding that White Sox team is crazy with all the talent they had, and they're expected to do absolutely nothing this year in the AL Central.
Yeah, it's such a brutal. It feels like a coin flip. And when you look at the roster and the pitching, if we should have learned last year, if you don't recall, it wasn't a lot of big names, Donnie, but that Minnesota starting pitching and that bullpen and middle relief were absolutely tremendous. And they played small ball really well. That was a very, very good baseball team that was underrated. Can they do that again this year? Sure, because mostly that middle relief and back end of the bullpen, pretty much the same. They were never going to blow you away with their starting pitching. But it's some of the other teams are getting all love right now, like Detroit, expecting a big improvement from them. And what about the Royals, who have now lost over 100 games, I think, 106 last year? They have lost, it feels like, 100 games over the last 3 out of the last 4 or 5 years here outside of the COVID year. But a lot of people are putting some money on the Royals here, thinking that this is going to be a really, really good team. They locked up Witt, right? And when is the last time you saw the Royals spend money to lock up a superstar? So maybe the tides are turning here in Kansas City because it's a mediocre division with a lot of mediocre teams.
It's funny you bring up there because I do like the young starting pitching that the Royals have, but also their 1 through 9. Garcia, Witt Jr., Pasquantino, Vinny out there, but dropping bombs in that 3 spot. Salvador Perez, the ageless catcher here, doing damage. Up and down their lineup, they have talent, but I thought you hit the nail on the head. They're spending money now, and you say, well, why all of a sudden the Royals spending money? They're trying to curry favor with actually getting a new stadium deal, so showing their fans that they're invested now. You want to get ahead of that curve, which you would be if you bet the Royals, because if they're somewhat in it midway, Joe, they're going to add to their talent base as opposed to being the minor league franchise for everybody else building their rosters for a playoff run. So it's a good point you bring out here. AL West, Astros, Rangers, Mariners, the top 3 there, all close here. Minus 115 for the Astros, the Rangers plus 210, and the Mariners at a 3-1 price to win the West. Bottom feeders, we probably anticipate the Angels and the Athletics, but that's a great 1-2-3 punch here in the West.
Yeah, don't sleep on the A's. No, okay, pass out on the A's because they're awful.
Sleep on
and
them.
So are the Angels. Yeah, I don't know what to make of Seattle, given the fact that it seems that the ownership group from the top there has pretty much sent message after message that they're not really investing in talent enough to want to consider them. Now, the Marlins didn't do that for how many years, and they ended up winning two World Series, So, Texas last year took all the money they had, put it in the middle of the table, and went out to try to buy themselves a championship. And guess what? It worked. The interesting thing about the Rangers is I think they're a fade team early, and then when the pieces start rolling back in, you kind of can't ignore them. I hope they do. I hope they fall flat on their face early, Donnie, so I can jump in on the Rangers come June. And that's what I am hoping for here, because the amount of artillery they have coming back after the All-Star break should make you wonder a little bit if this team can't make another run.
Hey, by the way, shout out the Angels, too, who had probably a once every 50-year player. Oh, man, they probably rebuilt their whole farm system. New starting pitchers, a couple starters in the lineup. What a great trade by the Angels. Let him walk for maybe the 35th overall pick as a compensatory pick. Congratulations, Angels. That's not the way you run your business here. Way to run your business is what the NL East teams are doing, particularly with the Atlanta Braves, a minus 280 price here to win that division. For me, I'm a Phillies fan. You know I am. But the best team year after year that you just look at the lineup with basically no holes, it's always the Atlanta Braves. It's just that the Phillies play good baseball for 3 weeks in September and stay hot into October and don't take that 5-day bye that you see now in Major League Baseball, which allows the Phillies to knock off the Braves. Is it simple here in the East here to take a look at the Braves? Minus 280, Phillies plus 280. Then the Mets, Marlins, and Nationals bring up the rear at 13-1, 35-1, and 120-1 on the Nationals.
Yeah, well, so I'm fading a number of these teams in this division here. The only two that I'm not are the Phillies and the Braves. So take your pick out of those two there. And ultimately, I think it's rinse and repeat for don't think about the Phillies, Donnie, until what? About end of June, July? Because that's usually when they start to figure it all out. So the Phillies are a fade early. The Braves are going to be consistent. They're going to be a 100-win team this year. Because of the scheduling changing, Donnie, right? They don't have the gauntlet anymore, though it would be nice to have, 18, 19 games against the Marlins, the Mets, or Washington, but not the case this year. I do think the Braves are the cream of the crop, but it's the Phillies you can't sleep on because we know come the end of the year, they'll be there.
I'll tell you what's wild, too. You see the Nationals at 120-1 price to win that division. But it's not like the Nationals this year. It's like, how did we get here for the Nationals? Rewind back to the teams that they had, which actually won a World Series without Bryce Harper. But put Bryce Harper on that team. You're talking about Soto, Harper, Rendon, Scherzer, Strasburg. And you just let those guys walk away one by one. It's amazing. Like, if you just kept that core together, which would have been incredibly expensive, but you would have just sold out every single night. You'd be on ESPN Baseball every night. You would have multiple World Series championships. It's crazy how a franchise that had it all is now just in the doldrums with basically no hope or no escape here at this point as it moves on. Let's quickly get to the NL Central. We don't need to worry about the West. It's the Dodgers, and more Dodgers. Cardinals plus 150, Cubs plus 220, Reds 4-1 here. Cardinals probably the most talented team, but I like what the Cubbies did in the offseason here, Joe.
Yeah, no, there's not. I mean, listen, they've invested money in some players. They're going to be competitive. Whether it works out, we're going to see. But the Reds are really the up and coming team. A lot of folks are getting behind. The Brewers are the Rays to me. Stop sleeping on the Brewers and acting as if they're only going to win 60 games because they're not.
Yelich, MVP. You heard it here first. Because why? He's like the only good hitter they have. And if they are good, he can win the MVP. But how about this? Let's get to the Garden. The Flyers got the almighty point in overtime. That's what matters. Talk about it next.
Michigan State looked good. We were like, oh my gosh, Sparta to win the title. North Carolina beat a team who's barely beaten any good teams all year long. But I was expecting it.
Not a great three-point shooting team at about 139th in the country, shooting about 35% as a team. But the one thing we know about Marquette's defense, the three-point line is vulnerable for them.
Only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats in fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the
All
rim.
I've heard you say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smart team.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if they're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live. Prime time.
Back-to-back, just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live. Overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Quick segment before we hit hour number 2 right here on the early line. Down the right side along with Joe Ranieri. And boy, you want to talk, again, versatility here. It's what we do. We can play any sport, talk about any sport, you name it here. We're going to hit the NHL. You saw last night the Rangers 6-5 victory over the Philadelphia Flyers in overtime. The Flyers get a point, but the Rangers get the 100th point of the season. The first team in the NHL to do that. With doing that, Joe Ranieri, clinching a playoff spot. The Broadway boys ready to go.
Yeah, no, they are ready to, and Ranger fans, by the way, it's a fan base that's ready to take the next step here. So kudos to the Rangers, but the Rangers and Ranger fans will tell you, yeah, big deal. We expected you to make the playoffs. Now what are you going to do?
Exactly. 8-2 in their last 10. Win streak up to 3 here. The Flyers lost that game, but still hanging around. That's my squad here.
Yeah.
Haven't been relevant for quite some time. I haven't seen a home ice, basically playoff game. It feels like in 10 years, because the last time I believe they made the playoffs was the COVID year where everybody was on the road and or in neutral sites. So might be good to see playoff hockey in Philadelphia, but clearly the class right now of the Eastern Conference are the Rangers with 100 points, but right behind them, the Boston Bruins with 99 points, followed by the Panthers at 97 points. As we know, Joe, 3 teams out of the Atlantic are going to make it, 3 teams out of the Metropolitan. Then we have the 2 wild cards, which right now are the Lightning and the Capitals. So down the stretch, they come in the NHL, just like the NBA.
I know there's a lot of people, Donnie, who looked at the West and was like, the West is just, it's going to be them again this year as the Stanley Cup winner. This East is loaded. Absolutely loaded. When you go down those top 5 teams like Carolina, the Panthers, Boston, Rangers, it's going to be a very interesting battle to the finish here this Stanley Cup playoff season.
I'll tell you what's a good thing to watch here moving forward. Those Toronto Maple Leafs at 40-22.
Ooh.
Everybody's jockeying for position, saying, I need to play Toronto here in the first round so we can get an easy win and advance into the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Love the Stanley Cup playoffs. It feels like they play for 6 straight months in order to win who's going to actually get Lord Stanley's Cup here. The grind is on, people, and hour number 2 is just about underway. It's time to talk some NFL action. Hour number 2 comes up next.